on Acting Attorney General Blanche regarding his nomination for a permanent role. He demonstrated his ongoing commitment to transparency and rule of law. Indeed, the Justice Department has thrived under his leadership. The nation's murder rate is the lowest it's been in a century. The Justice Department has protected Americans at every turn. We've seen an increase in violent crime arrests, the disruption of terrorist activities, and seizure of illegal firearms and controlled substances. We've also seen an increase in the arrests of child predators and human traffickers, and a massive recovery of missing children lost during the Biden years. Mr. Blanche has also led major successes in thwarting federal program fraud and ending racial discrimination embedded in our government under the Biden administration. Despite all of Mr. Blanche's successes, the Democratic members of the committee and throughout the entire Senate, like clockwork, sought to defame him. Yesterday, we saw committee Democrats hold what one reporter called, quote unquote, a shadow forum to lodge their attacks against Mr. Blanche. That description seems appropriate because the Democrats has operated in the shadows for years. Now they're not hiding it. Some of yesterday's panelists was the former spokesman for Special Counsel Jack Smith. As my and Senator Johnson's oversight has repeatedly uncovered, time and time again, Jack Smith ushered in a weaponization of government unparalleled in our nation's history. So, if the people who engaged in the worst partisan lawfare this country has ever seen have a problem with Todd Blanche, the American people should take notice, because it means Mr. Blanche is doing something right. To be clear, I don't agree with how Mr. Blanche or the Justice Department has handled every matter, and I've demanded answers and will continue to do so, but I'd like to address a few of the recent attacks waged by others. Some has falsely alleged that Mr. Blanche hadn't met with Epstein victims. At the hearing, Mr. Blanche confirmed that he and other Justice Department officials personally met with more than 30 victims. He also rearranged his schedule to meet with victims present at the hearing that same day. It's clear that Mr. Blanche is sincere when he stated, quote, everyone at the department, including myself, remains committed to engaging with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, end of quote. Many have also criticized Mr. Blanche for President Trump's settlement with the IRS. That settlement purported to establish the infamous anti-weaponization fraud. Mr. Blanche has unequivocally stated on multiple occasions before Congress, and not just on this committee, but including sworn testimony before this committee and in multiple court filings across different courts, that the fund is dead. Still, many of my Democratic colleagues have challenged the portion of the settlement that remains intact, specifically a release of claims against President Trump and his family. To be clear, their tax information was stolen and unlawfully disclosed by a convicted criminal contracting with the IRS, and a mutual release of claims is as commonplace in a settlement as the paper it was written on. But for those criticizing the scope of immunity afforded to the president and his family who were victims of that crime, I ask this: where was the Democratic outcry when President Biden granted blanket pardons for his own family and associates? Those pardons often offered blanket and prospective immunity for prior crimes. I'd like to read to you now from Hunter Biden's pardon. It was, quote, a full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taking part in during the period January 1, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, end of quote. Blanket immunity for any crime whatsoever, known or non-known, that's a fact. No future prosecution for conduct covering a decade, that's a fact. President Biden issued sweeping, decade-long prospective immunity for his entire family, and he did the same for political allies like Dr. Fauci. So, isn't that self-dealing? I heard crickets from my Democratic colleagues when President Biden afforded this widespread, unprecedented immunity. So, spare me the outrage. I get it. My Democratic colleagues don't like President Trump. They get mad about everything he's done, regardless of whatever it is, and whether prior Democratic presidents did the same thing. But thwarting this nomination won't hurt the president. It'll hurt the American people who are now safer thanks to Mr. Blanche's successful leadership. Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome Senator Darlene Graham to the Senate Judiciary Committee. We all miss your brother and our friend, Lindsey. I can't tell you how many times we worked together, but it was always a joy. I see you bring a little different flavor to the Graham family participation. I don't see any cans of Coke Zero in front of you, and I don't believe your brother would attend any session that didn't include him. But thank you so much for being with us, and we want to work with you as we worked with your brother. Every meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee has a necessary starting point, and today was no exception. Before we can talk about anything else, we've got to talk about Jack Smith. Jack Smith is the political punching bag of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Jack Smith, that special counsel who was looking for foreign influence